Hello everyone, Vic here with another video. Today we're talking Friday the 13th hot takes. Now, there's 12 films in the franchise, so there's a lot of hot takes to get through. And listen, I, like many of you, probably one of the biggest Friday the 13th fans in the world. I mean, it's probably my number one, well, let's say it's my number two horror franchise behind Halloween. Right there with Nightmare on Elm Street, that's the big three for me. So let's go through with some of these hot takes. Of course, if you like this video, please hit the like button, give the thumbs up, leave a comment, and most importantly, hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed. All right, hot take number one. Let's get to it. Well, this one is going to ruffle some feathers for all the Jason fans. I'm a huge Jason fan, but I want to just approach with complete honesty and transparency and say the complete objective truth there, and that truth is that Jason Voorhees got his ass kicked by Freddy Krueger in Freddy vs. Jason. Now listen, I know that Jason fans to this day claim that Jason won the battle, won the war, dominated Freddy. Jason has seen his popularity pretty much grow to extremely high lengths in the last 30 years, whereas arguably Freddy's popularity has been on the downslide. We just haven't got a proper Freddy movie in a long time. We don't count that stupid remake from 2010, 2011, whatever it was. That movie has been erased from existence for all of horror fans' minds, I feel like. So just thinking about Freddy and Jason's popularity growing, the sentiment has grown that Jason won everything in Freddy vs. Jason. But I'm here to bring reality. I'm here to pour water on that fire. Pour water because, of course, Jason's afraid of water. But the fact is that if you watch Freddy vs. Jason with an open mind, you can only come away with one possible conclusion, and that is Freddy whooped that ass, whooped Jason's ass. Now listen, Freddy first, of course, brings Jason into the dream world with some tranquilizers. In the dream world, Freddy's quite shocked to find that this is not an ordinary victim who he's just going to kill in the dream world using his dream powers because Jason just cannot be killed. So Freddy does some fun things in the dream world, plays pinball with Jason, realizes pretty quickly, oh shit, why won't you die? I mean, it's a great, great scene. And it's to be expected that Freddy has the advantage in the dream world. You expect Freddy to come out on top. So Jason brings Freddy into the real world, wakes up, of course, they're at Camp Crystal Lake. Freddy's like, oh shit, that look of fear on Freddy's face. Like, man, I'm gonna have to break out the fighting skills. And look, going into the real world, I was expecting Jason now for the rest of the movie to really destroy Freddy. I was thinking that, oh, this is over now. There's no chance that Freddy has against Jason in a real world setting where Jason has all his powers and Freddy supposedly does not have his powers. Surprise, come to find out that Freddy, I guess, it haunted the dreams of John Wick, inherited John Wick's powers, has more fighting ability than, the guy in the movie Nobody. Freddy in the real world destroys Jason with his kung fu fighting skills, likes which we haven't seen since the original Bloodsport movie back in the 80s. I don't know. I was surprised by this whole thing. Freddy, pulling out the elbows, the knees, the chops, the punches, the slaps to the face. I mean, Freddy is putting in work here against Jason. You get onto the little bridge thing, balcony thing, majigger, whatever you want to call it. And Freddy's still, in my opinion, winning the battle, gets Jason on the ground, stabbing out his eyeballs, and then here comes these pesky kids, these Scooby-Doo kids, to interfere, giving the advantage to Jason, and then, welcome to my world, and, whatever. Jason punches through Freddy, Freddy gets his head chopped off. All good and great. Freddy winking at the end, indicating that maybe Jason is stuck in Freddy's dream world, which is a theory I actually subscribe to. My point is that overall, I would say that fight between Freddy and Jason in Dream World, in the real world, at the end, it was about 70-30 in Freddy's favor. And I'm a huge Jason fan, but the way they filmed it, the way they wrote it, you come away thinking that Freddy actually can handle himself in the real world and was able to kind of dominate Jason, honestly. If there was judges giving a decision based on points, you would reward victory to Freddy Krueger, I would say. Okay, next hot take. Jason X would have been a hit movie if it had came out when it originally was supposed to. Now, a lot of people may not know this, but Jason X was actually filmed in 1999. So at the time, they're using really advanced special effects for 1999. So the movie looks great for the time period and they transferred it from film to digital, so it had like a completely different look. The problem was New Line had new executives take over, and they weren't big fans of Jason. The people that were supporting Jason X, they got the boot. They were no longer at New Line, so Jason X got put on the shelf for 2 full years. So the movie comes out 2002, when really it was completed in 1999. So that's 3 years. So by the time it comes out, not only are the special effects no longer relevant, the effects had pretty much aged themselves just in 3 years because things were moving so fast, but the entire horror genre had changed. 2002 was like, man, you had like The Ring and you had like The Grudge, the others. You had more ghostly type horror starting to take over. Slashers were starting to be a little bit passe. And look, I know a year later, 2003, Freddy vs. Jason is going to be a huge hit. But Freddy vs. Jason is the kind of event movie that's going to transcend whatever's going on in the horror genre. That was always going to make a lot of money no matter when you release that. But Jason X, like a random horror sequel for the Friday the 13th franchise with Jason in space, that you had to release at the proper time, and 1999 would have been the proper time. If you remember what's going on in the 90s, after Scream hits in 1996, you have a plethora of slasher sequels and ripoffs coming through, and they're all doing pretty damn good. I know you did last summer, Urban Legend, The Faculty, and, you know, one obvious big thing to look at is Halloween H2O came out in 1998. It was a huge hit. So Jason should have, followed in older brother Mikey's footsteps there and came out at that time period. So 1999, Jason X, I think, would have done a lot better and maybe changed the course of the franchise because you had Jason X and then you had Freddy vs. Jason and then Friday the 13th kind of goes dormant until the reboot, until 2009. Had Jason X been a pretty good hit, you could have got Freddy vs. Jason, then maybe another Friday the 13th sequel. That original timeline maybe had some legs. You could have got a Jason X Part 2 on Earth 3 or Earth 4, wherever it would take place. But as it is, Jason X, with a pretty decent budget, only made $12 million at the box office when it came out in 2002. I think that if there wasn't the shakeup at New Line Cinema and it comes out in 1999 when slashers are still a thing, you're coming off H2O, a new Jason movie, the audience would have been way more receptive to it, even though being in space is always kind of, a little bit gimmicky. So maybe it doesn't get the same appeal as, Jamie Lee Curtis in H2O. But I think maybe in 1999, Jason X maybe is a solid $20-30 million box office and, again, changes the entire course of the franchise. So maybe we have New Line to blame for delaying the release and then killing that original timeline of Friday the 13th franchise because things could have been grooving and moving if you got that sequel in 1999. Moving on to the next one. Okay. Speaking of the reboot, 2009. Is it a reboot? Is it a sequel? Is it a requel? What is 2009? It's definitely not a remake, I would say, but it feels like more of a normal sequel. Hot take here for me is that I think the 2009 Friday the 13th is better than the 1980 Friday the 13th. I think that if you watch both those two movies back to back, and you try to eliminate all nostalgia you may have for the original Friday the 13th, all the, I grew up watching this movie, all the, it's the originals, it has to be the best, all that stuff, put that to the side and just watch both movies back to back. It's hard to come away feeling like Friday the 13th 1980 is even on the same level as 2009's Friday the 13th. I would say that everything from the acting to the story to the kills to the feel to Jason. Of course, Jason's really not in the original, but Jason 2009 is a much better killer than Betsy Palmer in 1980. I would say Friday the 13th 2009, objectively, and this is subjective, of course, but objectively, in my opinion, subjectively speaking, I would say that it is a better movie, and that's more of a statement, I think. It doesn't mean that 2009 is like such a great movie. It's just more of a statement of how mediocre or overrated the original Friday the 13th is. I know that a lot of people have, even in the comments, expressed the idea that we have to give it respect because everything branches off from that. And I 100% am acknowledging we wouldn't have anything without the original Friday the 13th. We needed Sean Cunningham to, be like, hey, let's rip off Halloween to get to a point of this great franchise. I'm just saying that I think that when doing a Friday the 13th ranking of the movies, don't be afraid to rank the original Friday the 13th lower on your list. Don't feel like you're obligated through some obligation to the original and being the original that you have to rank it higher than you actually feel it is. If your heart and your head say that a lot of the sequels are better than the original, then just rank the Friday the 13th where you want to rank it. For me, it's not in the top 5 of the franchise, and I'm not afraid to put that out there. I give respect to it. I start everything, I preface with, hey, it's the original, it deserves respect. It branched off this amazing franchise. But I think a lot of the sequels are better, and I think that if I'm showing a new fan the franchise, I would 100% show them 2009's Friday the 13th over the original. All right, moving on. Okay, so Kane Hodder for me is a solid Jason, but he's not the best Jason. And I don't think he's even in the top two. I think that both C.J. Graham and Ted White are both better Jasons. That's the final chapter Jason, and that is Jason Lives Jason. Kane Hodder, I respect a lot because he carried the second half of the franchise in terms of being Jason. I mean, you got New Blood, Jason Takes Manhattan, Jason Goes to Hell, Jason X. He's a fantastic Jason, but he's not the definitive Jason. And that's kind of like going back to the idea of, the original verse 2009. A lot of people feel like an obligation to rank Kane Hodder at the top of the list because, hey, he's done enough times. He's more synonymous with the franchise than the other ones. But I just think the best portrayal of zombie Jason is CJ Graham in Part 6. And I think the best version of human Jason is to Ted White in Final Chapter. I think those are the definitive Jasons. And I think Kane Hodder's number 3 for me. And it's no disrespect to him. I'm saying he's still a great Jason, of course. But, in the Halloween franchise, for example, some people do rank Dick Warlock over Nick Castle. And I get that completely as well. There can be an obligation to the OG of things or the one that's been the most often done. Personally, I think Nick Castle is still the best Michael Myers, but I understand the Dick Warlock argument completely. But I think Kane Hodder is number 3 for me. And, let me know in the comments, who do you rank as the best Jason? Where does Kane Hodder rank on your list? I go CJ Graham, Ted White, and then Kane Hodder. Okay. Moving on. Okay. Oh, this one is going to ruffle some feathers for sure. In my estimation, Jason Takes Manhattan is a better movie than Part 7, The New Blood. Now, The New Blood, I think, is probably the movie in the franchise I think that most varies when you see like rankings and lists. You can see New Blood as high as top 5 on most people's lists. You can see it as low as top 5 on a lot of people's list. I fall somewhere in the middle on New Blood. I'm just like pretty unimpressed with the characters, the setting, mostly everything about the movie. The ending, for the most part, is good. I mean, it's a fun sort of action-filled type of ending. But I never get on board with Tina as much as I've seen other people get on board with Tina. And I think that Jason looks awesome in Part 7 for sure. But in terms of pure fun factor, I just have more fun with Jason Takes Manhattan. I think now that I've moved to the side of Jason Takes Manhattan is actually a solid sequel once you get over, the breaking point for everybody seems to be that, hey, it's false advertising. He's on a damn cruise ship. He's barely in Manhattan. Once I've moved past that, I just enjoy it for what it is. It's a fun movie. The stuff on the boat is fun. The stuff in Manhattan is fun. The whole thing is fun. And I think that, yes, it does have also a terrible Muppet face Jason ending. Jason melting in the sewer and turning back into a little kid is completely unexplainable and stupid. I just still have more fun with that movie than I do Friday the 13th, Part 7, New Blood. I think they're both in the same tier. It's just that on all my future rankings, it'll be the first time I think where I have Jason Takes Manhattan ranked above New Blood. Okay, let's move on to the next thing on the list, talking Jason Lives. Of course, in the archives, if you're interested, I did talk to the director, Tom McLaughlin, and I brought this point up to him, and I don't know if it's a hot take or if others agree or disagree, but my favorite character in Part 6, Jason Lives, has become Sheriff Garris. And why? Because as a kid, I just sympathized completely with Tommy and Megan, and it seemed like they were just being fun kids, and that mean old grouchy Sheriff Garris is being an overprotective father and being unreasonable Tommy Jarvis. Whatever the case. I feel like now as an adult watching it, not that I say I'm fully on his side, but I understand him being overprotective for Megan over this sort of creepy unknown of Tommy Jarvis just stumbling into his police station and talking about Jason. I can see where he wants his daughter to stay away from him. I can see where he's skeptical of Tommy Jarvis. All that said, with the skepticism, with that built in the plot, the main story of Jason Lives for me is actually that sort of push and pull struggle between the sheriff and Tommy Jarvis. And the only thing about Jason Lives, the only flaw with that movie is that Sheriff Garris dies before there's a payoff to their relationship. Like, you need Sheriff Garris at the end with Tommy, with Megan, and you need Sheriff Garris to give Tommy the you told me so. You were right. We're okay now. We're on good terms. I believe you. I've seen Jason. You were right the entire time. I think that just kind of really ends their arc in like a nice, really nice way. Now, obviously, life is messy, so sometimes it doesn't happen that way where you get closure. Closure is something that sometimes happens in movies, but in real life you don't always get closure. So I understand that Sheriff Garris died in a noble way because he's protecting his daughter, but none of the characters saw that. Like, Megan doesn't know that her dad died trying to save her life, and Tommy doesn't know that. And I just, as much as I like Sheriff Garris' death scene, him getting bent over, broken in half is an amazing visual. I would have liked to see him survive. Give that death to like his deputy or someone else. Like still do the back cracking death, but say that for somebody else. Have Sheriff Garris having hid in the woods, come back at the end, and have him have some kind of closure with Tommy Jarvis. Just would have sealed it as, it's already my favorite sequel, but just seal it as really by far the best movie in the franchise in my estimation. Okay, moving on. Well, let's stick with Jason Lives for a second because this debate has come up a lot lately in terms of, was Jason going to kill the kids in the cabin? I had this discussion with someone on Reddit who was like just so convinced that, hey, Jason was surely going to kill the kids. He kept getting distracted, but his plan was to kill them. I just don't think so. I mean, Jason historically is a quick hitting killer. He seizes a victim, comes upon his victim, and usually kills them when he's in proximity to kill them. When he's within reaching distance, he kills them. He has a lot of time in that cabin walking slowly with the kids, and he never makes a move to harm them. So I don't personally think Jason was going to harm the kids. I understand that it may be cool for some people to think that, yeah, Jason is, no sympathy, no empathy, no nothing. He doesn't see himself in the kids. He would have killed them, but he got distracted and left the cabin. But I don't see any evidence in the movie to suggest that. I don't think we'd harm the kids. All right, moving on. Well, let's go to the original Friday the 13th, the one that I say is not particularly a classic in my opinion, but still a pretty decent movie. Terrible whodunit, but okay. What could have improved the original Friday the 13th? Maybe put it higher on my list in the rankings. Well, one thing to be honest, and this is like, I've said it many times, and it's sort of a hot take, but I truly believe it. I think that Annie should have been the final girl over Alice. If you rewatch the original Friday the 13th now, there's something I feel about this the way I feel about Halloween 2, or the original Halloween as well. Both Alice and Laurie. I don't know if it's because they became first. They just both became highly overrated as final girls. Laurie Strode from Halloween and Alice from Friday the 13th. Within the movie themselves, they're both not that great of final girls. Now, Laurie at least really is, I would say, especially in the second half of Halloween, the whole thing with Michael at the end. She kind of proves herself as a final girl for sure. But with Alice, I don't know. I find the whole movie, when we're getting to know her character, you really don't know anything about her, learn anything about her. You don't get attached to her character. So by the end, when she's fighting Mrs. Voorhees, yeah, you're cheering her for because she's the good guy that we're hoping the good guy wins and that, Mrs. Voorhees gets some comeuppance for all her killings. But I don't feel anything attachment. Like if at the end, if Jason had like grabbed Alice from the water in the boat and actually killed her, I would have felt bad. I'd have been like, oh yeah, this was who we were given as the main character, but I didn't feel any kind of attachment to Alice. Meanwhile, Annie only has like 3 scenes, right? But in those 3 scenes, as gullible and silly as she is to hitchhike with random people all the way to Crystal Lake, which I guess was more of a norm back then, more just acceptable, and the safety hazards of that, the movie The Hitcher hadn't come out yet, but as gullible as she might be, she seemed like a very nice girl and very, very likable. And when she dies in the original Friday the 13th in the woods, I feel something more emotionally than I do when Alice dies at the beginning of part 2. And Alice is our surviving final girl. We're supposed to have a strong connection to her. I felt nothing when she died at the beginning of part 2, but I feel bad for Annie, what happens to her in the woods. So what does that tell you? That tells you that within 3 scenes, to me, she established herself as like potentially a quality final girl. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. Okay, moving on. Friday the 13th part 2, solid sequel, one of the best sequels. No real issues with the movie. One thing I would say that holds the movie back a bit on rewatches. One missed opportunity. I don't know if this is a hot take either, but I'm just going to say it. I don't like that the prankster guy got off scotch-free in that movie. I feel like that this dude is playing pranks, deserves some comeuppance. He's an expected death that we don't get. You make him seem like the smartest character and the luckiest character because he just happens to leave Crystal Lake before all the killings begin. But of the characters who die in Friday the 13th Part 2, I like the cast for sure. I like the characters. But man, you can't let the prankster guy get away. Like that's gotta be, when you're writing the script, when you're filming that, you got to get to the end and be like, wait a minute, did we miss something here? Did something seems a little bit off? Yeah, something is off. You let the prankster guy get away with it. He should get killed. I don't, that's like horror 101. We see it in part 3 with Shelley. You play jokes, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. That guy got off scotch-free, and I think it kind of just irks me a little bit, which is weird that, I'm sitting there being like, hey, I wish this character would have died, but usually it's the opposite. You're like, man, I wish this character would have lived, but I don't know. I just feel like there was something there, a missed opportunity. Staying on part two, in my opinion, Muffins did die. Muffins is one dead dog. Nick kind of disagrees with me, but I'm going with Muffins being a dead dog. All right, moving on. Okay, well, I've talked about this many times before. Friday 13th Part 3, Vera should have been the final girl over Chris. I feel like there was a missed opportunity. If you watch the beginning of the movie, watch how the first half plays out. Vera is set up very much as having the final girl storyline. She is brought on this trip with friends on a blind date, going against her mother's wishes. There's a lot already built into that. And then you see her dynamic with Shelley, and it's probably the most interesting thing in the movie. And then when the killing starts, we focus so much time on Shelley and Vera, and then the first two basically disappear from the movie. It was just a missed opportunity. Vera had a thing, I think, that suggests that maybe should have been a great final girl, and no knock on Chris, but Chris and her boyfriend Rick, I think, are probably two of the least interesting final girl, final guy combos. I'm not gonna give Rick the satisfaction of being called a final guy. He's just there, pretty much. One of the most annoying people in Friday the 13th Part 3, I would say. So I would have liked to see Vera get more screen time, a better ending, a better resolution for her storyline. But again, it felt like a missed opportunity. Okay, so speaking of missed opportunities, Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter. Being that this was going to be the end of the franchise at the time, that was the idea, calling it final chapter. Of course, that was not the case. To really tie the franchise up, I would have brought Ginny back in final chapter. Now, what would her role have been? I don't know exactly. I think I'm kind of like thinking maybe she can fulfill that role that Rob played. The avenging person from the previous film, or have some connection to a previous film, is back. Maybe for some reason she's back there to warn them, or maybe she's hanging around Crystal Lake because she wants to make sure Jason's dead. You still keep Trish and Tommy, and you can kill off Ginny in this movie as well if you'd like, but I think it would have been a great tie-in. Ginny is probably maybe the most popular final girl in the franchise is Ginny, if you really pull Friday the 13th fan. So it would have been great to see her back in Part 4. If not then, just overall missed opportunity to not to bring her back in the franchise in general. I mean, you think about, Part 7, Part 8. We have Tommy Jarvis as sort of the main character in the middle of the movies, but I feel like Ginny would have been another character like Tommy Jarvis you could have kept bringing back, and people would have loved it. So, need more Ginny, essentially, is what I'm saying. Okay, hot take. We get into the final hot takes here. Well, for me, just my opinion, just my estimation, I don't agree with the masses, the new uprising of thought that Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, is an underrated sequel. I don't think it's overrated because that would suggest that, it's gotten a lot of hype. Recent years, it's gotten a reappraisal where people are saying that it's a solid sequel with a lot of things going for it. I just disagree. I think that it's a very average to below average sequel. I still don't understand the plotline. I don't understand why Roy's not just targeting Vic, the guy that killed his son. I don't understand why that's not the whole thing. He's killing random people. Why is he killing Demon in a van away from Crystal Lake? It had nothing to do with anything. Man just wanted to go on tour with his new future hit R&B song, Robbed America, one of the greatest R&B songs, Ooh Baby. But no, that has to die with uncomfortable enchiladas in his stomach. Okay, all I'm saying is I think A New Beginning is, for me, a bottom 5 sequel in the franchise, and I know people have begun to raise it up in the rankings now. It's going up in everybody's rankings. It's all subjective, so you're going to like what you like, but my opinion really hasn't changed. I have not come around on A New Beginning, and I'm somebody who really does come around on things. I was a big hater of Halloween 5. Now I'm slowly, believe it or not, becoming a champion of Halloween 5, I feel like, and Jason Takes Manhattan, I'm becoming a champion of that, I feel, but I don't quite see it yet with A New Beginning. When the next Friday the 13th rolls around, I'll do a rewatch of New Beginning. Maybe I'll feel differently, but I'm just not there with it as of now. All right, I think that's pretty much all my hot takes that I have today. Yeah, that's the whole list. So let me know in the comments, what are your hot takes? What are your thoughts on my hot takes? And listen, any Friday the 13th franchise thoughts you have, leave them in the comments. Until next time, you guys take care.